Carl. Literally just got back from Samsung Unpacked. I took a red eye from San Francisco straight back to here to Toronto. Didn't even go home. Straight to the studio to give you my hot take on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Now that I've used it for a couple days, now that I've switched to the device. And at first glance, if you looked at this phone and weren't familiar with the coloring, you'd probably think it looks very similar to the S22 Ultra, which it does. And it does come in this new signature color, which I think is the best. So they've just simply labeled this green. It should be some sort of camo, some sort of olive. It's my favorite. It's a bit muted. It's nice. It's definitely different. It's also available in Phantom Black, which is what I had last year on my S22 Ultra. Those look almost identical. Cream as well as lavender. I know that there's some online exclusive colors depending on where you live as well, but the phone, colors included, is inspired by nature this year, and that has a lot to do with sustainability. So obviously a lot of the materials that they use, a lot of the glass, a lot of the plastics are recycled. Things like the box, 100% recycled cardboard, which is dope. Love to see companies moving towards that, but the overall design aesthetic is almost the same. Think of this as almost an S model, so you won't really notice too big of a difference. And the biggest difference on the Ultra might be the smallest. A lot of people might fly under the radar for this, is actually the display. So still 6.8 inches, still Super AMOLED, still has an adaptive refresh rate, but it's slightly flatter. So the Ultra series has always been known to have that big curve on the side. It's actually quite a bit flatter. So I know people hate or love, I guess love, hate, sorry, I haven't got enough sleep on that plane ride. I know that myself included, I do prefer flatter displays. So this year around, it isn't as noticeable, so it should be easier to put a screen protector on it and you won't notice that curve as much. So it's a very subtle tweak, but it's something that I kind of geek out on, and I really like the fact that it isn't as pronounced. It's also the first time on a Samsung device that they're using Gorilla Glass Victus 2 glass, so better for shatterability or breaking your screen when you drop it, but that does mean the glass is slightly softer. And on the back, I've actually picked up a couple scratches already on the back, even though this phone has just been in my pocket doing photography tours, doing what I regularly do with the device when I test it out. So definitely grab a case, or I know for myself, I've actually just got some skins from Dbrand that I'm going to slap on the back to give it some sort of protection, because the last thing that you want to do is to scratch up your beautiful glass phone. And as a little note, more design changes to the smaller devices, so the S23 Plus and the S23, that actually now shares the same design language with the Ultra series. So they've gotten rid of the little visor shield over the camera bumps. Now they're all individual modules, so they're kind of the same across the board. And in terms of sizing, 6.1, 6.6, and like I said, 6.8 inches respectively. The biggest change coming to the Ultra series is on the back with the camera system, and although it still looks, once again, very, very similar, we now have a 200 megapixel main sensor. It is binning the pixels, combining 4 into 1, but it is a separate option now on the camera app. So you do have to select that, and when you want to switch to, say, an ultra wide or, say, the telephoto lens, you actually have to go back to the regular 3x4 or 9x16, whatever aspect ratio. That 200 megapixels only applies to the main sensor. And I'll start showing some photos that I snapped out in San Francisco. Overall, I thought the images were great. Dynamic range was good. But I did find the computational time of the photos on the app to take a couple extra seconds longer than what I wanted. And sometimes I did find it to be a bit hit or miss. So there's this great photo that I took at an art center. So you can see this photo here, looks great. I'll show it a blown up version on screen. But the one before that I took, literally the exact same frame, there was a bird that was flying through the actual frame, and for some reason, the phone could not quite understand what was going on, and we actually have this little cutout around the bird. So a bit strange to me. And I know that can probably be tweaked in future software updates, but just something to kind of keep in mind when you're using that main 200 megapixel mode. A lot of the rest of the photos that I took, though, were pretty incredible. This one that I snapped off of the pier of good old Alcatraz, a lot of the detail in that building, because of that 200 megapixel sensor, you are able to zoom in quite far. This is, of course, taken with a smartphone, and we're still getting some really good detail. So definitely a good camera, maybe just some things to kind of tweak in software still. The rest of the colors, sometimes a bit too oversaturated. I find that sometimes the issue with a lot of Samsung phones, they overboost, say, the blueness of the sky. You are able to toggle off the scene optimizer, but out of the box, what Samsung likes to say is the ideal photo, sometimes a bit too color saturated for my taste. But obviously, I know that's personal preference. I know that a lot of people just love saturated colors or saturated photos out of the box. I'm someone that just might need that extra little step or two, but switching on over to the front-facing camera, I think this is one of the best selfie cams on the market right now. But even for things like night photos, or what Samsung calls nightography, that's another huge improvement. Although I didn't take as many night shots as I wanted, I thought they looked pretty crisp. For video quality, you can record in 8K, which is obviously ultra crispy. Just remember, no stabilization, so unless you have that mounted on a tripod, I'd suggest kind of bumping that down. But optical image stabilization is double this year, so super smooth video. We did some pretty cool testing. The next big thing is the performance boost. So this is rocking the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 platform, the best in-class silicon that you can get. There's no longer a divergence. You can no longer get the Exynos or the Exynos chipset, so it is only rocking Snapdragon, and it is tweaked or optimized, built for Galaxy. So I know that they displayed that on the keynote. That partnership between Snapdragon and Samsung makes this perform optimally, I guess, compared to other Android devices. Obviously, gaming on this has been next level. I feel like we're getting to that point of any flagship in the past couple of years, whatever you throw at it, 3D gaming, multitasking, graphic design, your day-to-day tasks, this phone absolutely crushes. I would say the biggest difference is obviously the battery management. So this does still have 5,000 milliamps, and across the couple days, I didn't get to 0% on any of the days, even though I was testing this pretty heavily. Even right now, I'm still rocking around 66%. And the last time I charged it was around 12-ish hours ago. So definitely good on the battery end. And for the S23 Plus and S23, those have 200 extra milliamps of juice compared to the S22 line. Furthermore, the S Pen makes another appearance. Obviously, the Note series now is kind of RIP'd, and the Ultra series is the one that will get the Galaxy S Pen. So still the same S Pen, it still is slightly color matched just by the tip on the end. I typically don't use my S Pen too much, maybe to sign the occasional document, maybe to doodle around, maybe snap a selfie with some of the gestures or some of the buttons. But if you are an S Pen user, if you love to jot down notes, if you like to draw, if you love to doodle, you gotta stick with the Ultra. But yeah, that's pretty much the big changes coming to the S23 Ultra line. So if you already are coming from an S22, S22 Plus, or even Ultra, you can probably skip on the upgrade. If you're coming from an older device, this is definitely worth keeping an eye on, but also the 22 from last year, I think they're bumping that price down, so there should be some serious deals. But if you are a fan of this olive camo colorway, or green as Samsung calls it, you are tied to this. Honestly, the biggest change for me is the flatness of the display. Because you interact with your phone so much, it's actually quite noticeable, to be honest, or maybe I just kind of geek out on those things like I said. But anyways, that's kind of my review of the S23 Ultra, one of the best flagship devices that you'll be able to buy. It's obviously the build quality, the precision that you're paying for here with Samsung. It's built beautifully. It's one piece of glass. It feels super premium. It's nice and hefty, but like I said, the glass is a little bit softer, so just make sure to protect your device. And probably next year, if I could forecast, we'll probably see a design change. But let me know your thoughts down below. I hope that we can tweak some of those 200 megapixel photos in post, or perhaps in a software update, and I'll catch the rest of you in one of my next vids. Peace! I'm gonna get some sleep now.